Do any of you remember when the Alphabet Club was pretending that they weren't trying to groom kids? Well, I sure don't. I mean, it's been like 2 weeks since they were insisting that kids had nothing to do with kink or pride or anything like that, and that drag shows had nothing sexual in them whatsoever, but over the past 2 weeks, and in particular since the beginning of Deadly Sins Month, or as some people have christened it recently, Groomer Pride Month, that has all changed. And it first starts, of course, with Matt Walsh's seminal documentary, which is answering the question of our time, what is a woman? And in that documentary, which is horrifying, and I suggest everyone watch it because, well, you just need to see the full degeneracy on display, that lots of grooming of children was represented, but it didn't debate throughout the rest of the next week, because throughout, it seemed as though every single day there was going to be more revelations just how deep the rabbit hole went, whether it be Libs of TikTok's massive thread about Drag Kids Story Hour and other such events like it, and also the subsequent convictions that happened with some of these people, and also other articles which are coming back to defend having kids around admittedly kinky material in pride parades and things like that. The leftists have seemed to have dropped all pretense about not trying to groom kids in this case, and they've even gone as far as no longer denying the charge when you lay it at them, instead trying to claim that teaching kids gun safety is somehow equivalent to teaching them, well, other such more inappropriate topics, because they see an equivalence between trying to diddle a kid and teaching a kid how to protect himself from being diddled, apparently. Doesn't really make sense to me, but hey, that's what they're going with. But it is important to remember, as we are going about this, that leftists are not trapped in this position, all right? The leftist pipeline between it's not happening to it's a good thing is not so much a pipeline as much as it is a seesaw, you see, because they can jump back and forth between whether something is happening or not happening on a per-post basis. Just look at the actual mega thread by Libs of TikTok. You will see very few people proclaiming that grooming children is not happening, or anything to that effect. Instead, you're going to see people proclaiming this as a great good and all of that sort of stuff. But go to any other post on Libs of TikTok's site, and you will see many of the same sorts of accounts, generally not the same accounts themselves, in the description, saying there's no evidence for grooming whatsoever, and that alphabet people are not trying to involve kids whatsoever. This is very common among leftism, and the reason for that is, of course, that there is nothing in leftism that actually makes lying a bad thing. I mean, this should be evident enough by their continual advocacy of the idea that a woman can have a penis, which is an outright lie all on its own, or at least a great mistake. But some people have still not gotten through their incredibly thick heads. Leftists have no reason within their ideology and their anti-truth, anti-reality ideology to believe that lying is ever bad. Of course, unless their opponents do it, because reality to them simply doesn't matter. And reality can change on an ever constant basis based on your own simple conceptions and your own personal conceptions, or I guess I shouldn't say personal conceptions, since they don't believe in personal conceptions either. Instead, based on the general conception of the entirety of leftism. If you understand Rousseau, you'll understand where I'm coming with this. It's the general will, all that sort of stuff. It's why it's important to understand where all this comes out in the roots. And it is worth it to mention that these sorts of things did not pop up out of nowhere in the past 5 years. The leftists didn't start grooming kids in 2021. They have been doing it the entire time, and the whole alphabet people movement since the very beginning. And I can throw a couple names at you. Some of them show up in the What is a Woman documentary, whether it be Alfred Kinsley or John Money, or you could even point to people like Harvey Milk, who is an accused child predator, who is now, of course, on the face of children's books. It's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Where every single one of your ideological forebearers and every single one of the people who are leading the pack and continually respected to this day are all almost invariably child groomers? Isn't that an amazing thing? The only place where they even approach getting away from this is, of course, in the economic spectrum, because I have yet to see any evidence that Marx had any of these proclivities, but in every social aspect, the progenitors and the forebearers of leftist dogma on any issue are always the worst examples of how bad their positions are. Another good example would be abortion, with Margaret Sanger, who has all sorts of skeletons in her closet, whether it comes to eugenics or the fact that she was at least supportive of the KKK, and her organization is still highly respected to this day, along with her name. This is invariable in all of leftism, and whenever you point this out to leftists, they will pretend that these people have nothing to do with anything at all. There will be people, I suspect, if any leftist deigns to comment under such a small YouTuber as me, I'm not, full of myself, I'm sure there will be people who say that Harvey Milk was a fringe guy. The fact that he has his face on children's books is simply an aberration, non-issue. It's not like he's all over the place. It's not like he's the guy who is the progenitor of a lot of the sorts of things that continue to happen to this day at Pride events. No. They will continue to deny this because they have no basis in reality. Their whole point is the power game, and they're always playing the power game, and that's why the seesaw is such a massive thing. That's why they have the pipeline, because they have no compunction with lying to your face. And that is the truth. And now, that's also true for some people on the right, but the difference is that on the right, the truth matters. And if you're revealed to be a liar, then guess what? You get kicked out. You leave. You're no longer there. Or at least you have to repent and say you're sorry for lying. That is not the case in leftism. And that's no better seen than by the whole journalistic scene. Whether it be Taylor Lorenz, who gets to correct her, self-edit her Washington Post article, where she outright lies about asking for comment from people she never contacted until after the publication of the article, and then come back and say, well, no, this had nothing to do with me, and throw her editors under the bus in the process, because, ooh, wonderful thing at that. And that whole article was completely ridiculous. Just like triple edits. And only on the second one do you finally put in an actual correction. It's amazing. And this is all over the place in journalism. It's all over the place in leftism in general, because you never have to apologize for lying when you're a leftist. And you're doing it for leftist reasons, for promoting the general will and the power of leftism. That is the point, and I want to leave you with that. But to make it a bit more hopeful, because, well, your opponents are going to lie, but the convenience is, as was, I think, once again, to bring it full circle, very clearly established in What is a Woman, once you start asking the questions, once you show that you have a spine and are willing to stand up for yourself, they lose. They no longer are able to continue the lie because their basic assumptions about reality are so off base that any basic questioning and any lack of apathy at all is going to allow you to completely decimate them. And that, I think, is what it makes the whole difference, all right? And that's where I'm going to leave you guys off. If you enjoyed that video, do subscribe down below and check me out on other platforms. All of those links are down in the description, to my BitChute, to my Odyssey, to my Brighteon, to my Rumble, and to my Gab, Minds, and Getter pages. All of those links, once again, are down in the description. I suggest you go check them out. I'm KelKidman. This has been Breaking on the Daily. Don't be squared.